Right now, there's a voice in your head. It's reading these words. It's commenting on them. It's already forming opinions about what I'm about to say before I've even said it. That voice never stops. You wake up with it. You fall asleep still listening to it. It narrates your breakfast, your commute, your anxiety, your regret. It rehearses conversations that will never happen. It replays moments you wish you could forget. You call it thinking. But here's what's strange. You almost never speak those thoughts out loud. The voice talks all day and almost no one hears it but you. So why do you have it? If language evolved for communication, for sharing information with others, why do you spend 99% of your language use talking to yourself? What if the voice in your head isn't a side effect of language? What if it's the reason language exists at all? Linguist Noam Chomsky once said something that sounds almost absurd. Language is not properly regarded as a system of communication. It is a system for expressing thought. He estimated that 99.9% of language use is internal, silent, private, a conversation that happens entirely inside your skull. At first, that seems wrong. Language feels like it's for talking to people, for writing, for sharing. But think about your last hour. How many words did you speak out loud? Maybe a few dozen, maybe none. How many words passed through your mind? Thousands, tens of thousands. Researchers studying inner speech found that people with active internal monologues report verbal thoughts occurring almost constantly throughout the day. The voice comments, evaluates, plans, worries, remembers, imagines, all without ever reaching your lips. And here's what's unsettling. Not everyone has this voice. Studies suggest that somewhere between 30 and 50% of people experience a strong, constant inner monologue. The rest? Some think in images, some in feelings, some in almost nothing at all, a kind of quiet that people with loud inner voices can barely imagine. When this research went viral, people were stunned. Those with inner voices couldn't comprehend silence. Those without couldn't comprehend the noise. We assumed everyone's mind worked like ours. We were wrong. But if language were primarily for communication, wouldn't everyone use it the same way internally? Wouldn't the voice be universal? The fact that it isn't suggests something deeper. Language didn't evolve to connect us to others. It evolved to connect us to ourselves. Here's a thought experiment. Try to think about tomorrow without using words. Try to plan a meeting. Try to weigh a decision. Try to imagine what you'll say to someone you're nervous to see. You can picture images. You can feel emotions. But the moment you try to organize those images, sequence them, evaluate them, language appears. If I say this, then she might think, but what if? No, that won't work because the voice structures your thinking. It turns chaos into narrative. It lets you hold an idea still long enough to examine it. This is what Chomsky means. Language isn't a tool for sending messages. It's a tool for building thoughts. Consider this. Every animal communicates. Bees dance, whales sing. Vervet monkeys have distinct alarm calls for different predators. One for eagles, one for snakes, one for leopards. That's communication. That's sharing information. But no animal talks to itself. No animal uses its communication system to think, to plan, to simulate conversations that haven't happened yet, to replay moments from the past and ask, what if I had said something different? Only humans do this. And we do it constantly. The voice in your head isn't a byproduct of having language. It might be the entire point. Evolution didn't give you language so you could talk to others. It gave you language so you could think in ways no other creature can. Communication came later, an accident, a side effect of a much stranger ability, the ability to speak to yourself. I remember lying awake one night, unable to sleep. My mind was rehearsing a conversation I was dreading. Over and over, I played out what I would say, what they might say, how I would respond. I must have run through it 50 times, each version slightly different. Each time, my heart rate rising as if it were actually happening. But it wasn't happening. It was just me, alone in the dark, talking to myself about talking to someone else. And I realized, this is what I do all day. Not just rehearsal, replay, re-evaluation, endless internal dialogue about things that already happened, things that might happen, things that will never happen. Why? If language evolved for communication, this makes no sense. I wasn't communicating. I was just looping. But if language evolved for thought, for modeling reality, for simulating possibilities, for running mental experiments, then suddenly it makes perfect sense. That conversation I rehearsed, I was testing scenarios, predicting outcomes, preparing for something my body treated as real, even though my mind knew it wasn't. The voice in your head isn't pointless chatter. It's a simulation engine. It lets you live moments before they happen. It lets you relive moments after they're gone. It lets you exist in multiple timelines at once. The past you're remembering, the future you're imagining, the present you're barely noticing because you're so busy thinking. No other animal can do this. And the tool that makes it possible is the same tool you use to order coffee. Language. So, where did the voice come from? Watch a child learning to speak. At first, they talk out loud to their toys, to themselves, to no one in particular. Put the block here. No, not there. Here. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky called this private speech. The child is using language to guide their own actions, to regulate their own behavior, to think. As they grow older, the speech doesn't disappear. It goes underground. It becomes internal, silent. The voice in your head? It started as a voice outside your head. You internalized it. You learned to speak without moving your lips. And that internalization changed everything. Suddenly, you could hold ideas in place. You could compare them. You could sequence them in time. You could build arguments, test hypotheses, imagine alternatives. You could think in ways that would be impossible without words. Some researchers believe this is the true leap that made humans different. Not tools, not fire, not even communication. But the moment we started talking to ourselves, the moment language turned inward, that's when thought, as we know it, was born. But here's what I keep thinking about. If the voice in your head is a tool, a thinking machine, then who is using it? Who is the you that listens to the voice? Because the voice isn't you. You can observe it. You can disagree with it. You can notice when it's being irrational, anxious, cruel. If you were the voice, you couldn't step back and watch it, but you can. So there's the voice. And there's something else, something that hears the voice, something that exists before the words, beneath the words, between the words. Maybe language didn't just evolve for thinking. Maybe it evolved to create the illusion of a thinker. Before language, there was experience, raw, immediate, unnarrated. After language, there was a story, a self, a character who lives inside the story, who believes they are the author, who forgets they are also the reader. The voice in your head isn't you speaking to yourself. It's language speaking you into existence. Every thought, every internal sentence, every silent word, it builds the feeling that there's someone in there, someone thinking, someone in control. But maybe that someone is the product of the voice, not the source of it. Maybe you don't have an inner voice. Maybe the inner voice has you. Right now, there's a voice in your head. It's been here the whole time, commenting, reacting, forming opinions about what I've said. But now you're aware of it. Now you're listening to it listen. And for just a moment, in the gap between the words, you might notice something else. Something that was there before the voice started. something that will still be there when it finally stops.